Bonsoir à tous, merci de vous connecter. C'est un live testing ce soir assez exceptionnel. On est hyper content d'accueillir Chris et Andrea Mullineux. You can say hi.
Yeah, hi Max, how are you?
Great. They are connecting from South Africa, live and direct. We have only, there's no time difference. It's only 6 months time difference. Because the season is the opposite, of course. Yeah. Et tout le monde, donc on va essayer de faire le live testing ce soir un peu en français pour quelques explications et en anglais. S'il y a des choses que vous ne comprenez pas en anglais, vous pouvez demander dans le chat. Juliette pourra vous expliquer et vous traduire, n'hésitez pas. On a aussi Raffi Gabeyan. Bonsoir Raffi.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Donc Raffi, qui importe du vin depuis déjà une dizaine d'années en France. Il est tombé amoureux de l'Afrique du Sud à court d'un voyage et il a commencé à importer le vin qu'il distribue dans des cavistes et des restaurateurs de manière assez exclusive. Et en fait, il m'a contacté pour financer un projet assez généreux, on va dire, de mettre en place un site internet pour permettre à tous les particuliers d'acheter du vin. Et j'ai trouvé ça génial. Donc, quand j'ai vu surtout la sélection de vins très pointue qu'il a fait, je me suis dit, il faut vraiment qu'on l'aide à faire ça pour que les Français puissent découvrir ces vins extraordinaires qu'il a sélectionnés en Afrique du Sud. Et on a aussi avec nous la chance d'avoir ce soir Jérémy Kuckerman. Bonsoir Jérémy.
Bonsoir à tous.
Voilà. Alors Jérémy, c'est un illustre Master of Wine, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas, et qui en plus est très sympathique et connaît très bien l'Afrique du Sud. Donc, on a vraiment un aéropage d'experts, de spécialistes, et on est hyper content que vous puissiez tous vous connecter et profiter. On a beaucoup de gens qui se sont aussi, qui ont commandé les vins. A priori, tout le monde les a reçus. Il y a eu peut-être 2-3 bugs de la poste, mais a priori, tout le monde l'a reçu, donc on va pouvoir déguster ça tous ensemble. Voilà, on va passer un bon moment ce soir ensemble. N'hésitez pas à tout moment. Ah, je vois que Ayn a reçu le vin, c'est super. Et donc, n'hésitez pas pendant la dégustation à intervenir, poser des questions. On est là tous ensemble, c'est un moment de partage, donc n'hésitez pas, comme dans une dégustation normale, à poser vos questions. Je vais laisser la parole à Raffi peut-être pour commencer à présenter tout ça.
Oui, merci. Merci Maxime. Merci à toutes et à tous de vous connecter. Je vois plein de visages familiers. Je n'ai pas le temps de dire bonjour à tout le monde. Salut à toutes et à tous. Alors, en quelques mots rapidement, je vais juste mettre un peu de vidéo parce que moi, j'aime bien la vidéo en règle générale. Donc, un petit peu d'image pour s'évader. Je ne sais pas si vous voyez à l'écran. Donc, bienvenue en Afrique du Sud. C'est un pays magnifique où les gens sont merveilleux, les paysages sont merveilleux, les vins sont fantastiques. J'ai commencé cette aventure il y a un peu plus de 10 ans en important des vins d'Afrique du Sud suite à un voyage et parce que j'étais frustré de ne pas les trouver en France. Et de fil en aiguille, je me retrouve à faire le projet Good Hope aujourd'hui avec l'aide de WineFunding pour enfin amener tous les meilleurs vins d'Afrique du Sud, des meilleurs domaines au public français. J'étais un peu frustré que ça ne se fasse pas, donc j'ai décidé de prendre les choses à bras-le-corps. Et donc l'Afrique du Sud a une histoire très ancienne dans le monde du vin. Donc ils sont un peu classés dans le Nouveau Monde, mais ils font du vin depuis plus de 350 années. Pardon, je vais juste faire ça. Et ils font des grands vins qui sont malheureusement méconnus de nous en France. Il faut savoir que pendant longtemps, au tout début, donc 17e siècle, 18e siècle, les vins sud-africains étaient très recherchés. On a tous entendu parler du vin de Constance, du domaine Klein Constantia que Napoléon, soi-disant, buvait sur l'île de Sainte-Hélène. C'est le vignoble du vin de Constance que vous voyez sur cette image. Ensuite, il y a eu une période, on va dire, où la qualité s'est un petit peu perdue dans la production de masse et surtout dans la distillation, parce que les locaux aiment beaucoup le brandy, une espèce de cognac local. Et ensuite, malheureusement, l'Afrique du Sud a traversé une période très obscure, comme on le sait tous, avec l'apartheid. Et les choses n'ont vraiment redémarré qu'à la libération et à l'arrivée de la démocratie, avec beaucoup de nouveaux domaines qui ont démarré pratiquement de zéro. Avant, il y avait un système de coopérative. Et dans les années 90, donc, on a vu arriver de nouveaux domaines qui démarraient tout juste. Alors, pendant quelques années, jusqu'aux années 2000, les domaines sud-africains ont essayé beaucoup de copier ce qui se faisait à l'étranger. Et il y a vraiment eu une révolution au début, je dirais au milieu des années 2000, à partir de 2005, et encore plus à partir de 2010, avec des vignerons et des vigneronnes qui ont décidé de privilégier, on va dire, l'authenticité, les cépages qui ont du sens, le terroir, et des méthodes viticoles un petit peu plus respectueuses de l'environnement. Et là, tout d'un coup, il y a eu un essor énorme de la qualité de la production en Afrique du Sud. Donc l'Afrique du Sud, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas globalement, je ne sais pas si vous y êtes déjà allé en vacances, je recommande fortement. C'est un très grand pays, ça fait plusieurs fois la taille de la France, mais il y a moins d'habitants qu'en France et il y a beaucoup plus d'animaux sauvages qu'en France, ça c'est sûr. Et la partie viticole est vraiment concentrée dans le sud-ouest, dans la région du Western Cape, du Cap occidental, qui est une région extraordinaire par sa biodiversité. Ceux qui s'intéressent aux plantes sauront que cette zone est un World Heritage Site de l'UNESCO pour ce qu'on appelle la réserve florale du Cap, avec plus de 9000 plantes, et une géologie très ancienne. Une des géologies, en fait, la géologie la plus ancienne dans le monde viticole, tout inclus. Donc, deux facteurs assez intéressants pour faire du vin. Alors, tout est très concentré sur le Western Cape. Vous avez plusieurs zones. Notamment, donc ici, vous avez la ville de Cape Town. Vous avez Constantia, qui est, on va dire, juste en périphérie c'est dans la ville même de Cape Town. Et ensuite, vous avez la ville de Stellenbosch et les vignobles de Stellenbosch. Stellenbosch est la deuxième ville historiquement, entre guillemets, ville au sens colon, mais ville construite par les Néerlandais juste après Cape Town. Et Stellenbosch a une très fameuse université. Chris est allé à l'université de Stellenbosch pour faire de la comptabilité au départ, mais mal lui en a pris. Il s'est mis à faire plutôt des études de vin. Et vous avez ensuite des endroits un peu plus aussi connus, Paarl, Franschhoek. C'est vraiment pas très loin de Cape Town. Et après, vous avez une périphérie un peu plus éloignée, le Swartland ici en rose, et la ville de Malmesbury, proche de laquelle se trouve la ferme des Mullineux. Vous avez aussi peut-être entendu parler de Hermanus sur la côte. C'est là où il y a des chardonnays et des pinots noirs. Et maintenant, on a, on va dire, une espèce d'expansion sur le nord du Swartland et aussi vers l'est, avec des régions comme Elim ou ici du côté de Swellendam, où on a de nouveaux domaines qui surgissent. J'ai perdu mon fil, il est là. Voilà, alors juste rapidement, donc l'Afrique du Sud, ça dépend des années, mais c'est entre la 7e et la 9e nation en production de vin. En nombre d'hectares, ce n'est pas énorme, 100 000 hectares, c'est moins que le vignoble de Bordeaux. Donc ça vous donne à peu près une idée. Une proportion de rouge et de plutôt 60% rouge, 40% de blanc et des récoltes qui ont lieu au mois de février, mars, même des fois janvier. Et donc, les vendanges viennent juste d'être terminées en Afrique du Sud. En termes de cépages plantés, le cépage blanc le plus planté est le chenin blanc. L'Afrique du Sud est la plus grosse, je dirais, plantation de chenin blanc. Ensuite, vous avez la Loire et c'est à peu près tout. Il y a aussi du colombard, mais ça c'est beaucoup utilisé pour la distillerie. Et ensuite, Sauvignon blanc et Chardonnay. Et en rouge, c'est quand même le Cabernet Sauvignon qui domine devant la Syrah. Et un peu derrière, le fameux pinotage, qui est le croisement du Pinot Noir et du Cinsault, qui est très connu à l'étranger, mais qui n'est pas en fait le cépage le plus planté. Et le Cinsault aussi, qui était pendant très longtemps le cépage en rouge qui était le plus planté en Afrique du Sud. On n'en parlera peut-être pas aujourd'hui, mais dans des prochaines dégustations, on pourra en parler avec le Mullineux qui travaille sur la plus vieille vigne de cinsault d'Afrique du Sud, pour leur domaine basé à Franschhoek, on en parlera tout à l'heure. Ça, c'était une petite introduction rapide de l'Afrique du Sud. Je vais laisser le micro à mon ami Jérémy Kuckerman, qui connaît très bien aussi le domaine Mullineux, pour vous faire une petite introduction. Et après, on pourra passer à la dégustation avec les Mullineux. Jérémy, c'est à toi.
Merci Raffi. Bravo pour cette belle introduction et puis pour cette jolie décoration, même s'il n'y a pas que des vins sud-africains derrière toi, mais des jolies étiquettes en tout cas. Toujours difficile de parler de personnes qui vous écoutent, mais c'est vrai que voilà, moi j'ai beaucoup d'admiration pour Chris et Andrea, pour tout ce qu'ils ont fait. Il y a un nombre assez restreint de vignerons qui ont vraiment mis le Swartland sur la carte. C'est une région qui a énormément bougé récemment, qui a plus que bougé, fait bouger les lignes, qui, à mon avis, est une région qui devrait être source d'exemple pour beaucoup de monde, parce qu'on est sur une climatologie assez extrême. Il fait très chaud, il fait très sec. On est directement impacté par le changement climatique. On a un vent qui s'appelle le Cape Doctor, qui est un vent sec et chaud qui accentue donc ces phénomènes climatiques. Et pourtant, au Swartland, fort d'une émulation collective et de ces pionniers dont font partie Chris et Andrea, on produit des vins qui sont des vins extrêmement élégants et qui ont une forme, je trouve, de dualité qui est vraiment intéressante, puisqu'ils sont à la fois très élégants, comme je le disais, et en même temps, il y a ce côté sauvage qui ressort quand même, qui est propre au Swartland. Je trouve que voilà, il y a ce côté un peu salin, épicé sur les blancs, ces épices très fortes de la Syrah, et ce côté, je disais, un peu sauvage sur les vins, mais du sauvage noble, hein, pas le sauvage qu'on n'aime pas avec les goûts de poney. Et donc voilà, je trouve qu'il y a quand même une vraie identité terroir qui est extrêmement forte dans ces vins. Tout en ayant cette forme d'élégance, de délicatesse, qui est une véritable prouesse, parce que, comme je le disais, il fait particulièrement chaud et pourtant les alcools sont maîtrisés. Alors, il y a plein de choses derrière cette élégance, hein. Il y a d'abord une approche collective qui veut aller en ce sens et qui a donné le jour à un cahier des charges commun. Dans ce cahier des charges, il y a peu de bois, notamment. Il y a essayé effectivement de respecter des niveaux d'alcool plutôt maîtrisés. Donc ce vieil adage qui veut qu'on attende pour avoir la maturité phénolique dont on entend beaucoup parler aujourd'hui, on lui tord un petit peu le cou en Afrique du Sud, parce qu'en fait on récolte quand il y a le degré. Et puis finalement on se rend compte que ça fait des vins très élégants si on n'est pas trop dans l'extraction derrière. Donc ça, je trouve que c'est très intéressant. Il y a une forme de leçon de vinification. Ensuite, quelques mots quand même sur les deux personnages. D'abord, je trouve que c'est bien dans ce monde qui a été trop longtemps misogyne d'avoir de la parité, donc de voir un couple. Introduction à ce beau projet de Raffi avec Chris et Andrea. Je trouve qu'il y a un double clin d'œil, puisque Chris et Andrea se sont rencontrés en France, entre la Champagne et le Rhône, et ce sont deux grands amoureux de la France. Donc c'est vrai que voilà, c'est particulièrement intéressant, je pense, de les voir en premier lieu. Bon, en plus, comme je le disais, ça fait partie avec Ibn Sadi, avec Ali Bedonors, des grands pionniers de la région et de ceux qui ont vraiment fait connaître l'Afrique du Sud et le Swartland. Donc voilà, donc ça, je trouve ça vraiment intéressant. Et puis en plus, voilà, ces deux personnes absolument charmantes, et leur ferme, Roundstone, est un endroit absolument magnifique. C'est une sorte d'îlot vert au milieu de cet endroit un peu désertique, à flanc de montagne, qui ressemble un peu à leur vin, un endroit un peu poétique, avec beaucoup de générosité, beaucoup de couleurs. Voilà, et je trouve que ça ressemble aussi au pays. Donc voilà, donc ravi.
C'est ce qu'on voit derrière moi d'ailleurs. Ça, c'est les vignes de Mullineux. Et Jérémy, tant que tu es encore sur l'Afrique du Sud aussi un petit peu, il y a une question dans le chat de Charles qui demande quels climats en Europe sont similaires à ce qu'on trouve en Afrique du Sud, d'après toi?
Alors, si je devais faire un parallèle, en tout cas par rapport au Swartland, parce qu'après, bon, l'Afrique du Sud, il y a des différences climatiques quand même relativement importantes. Hein. Quand on est à Hermanus, avec les baleines et la mer, on n'a pas le même climat que dans le Swartland, par exemple. Mais pour moi, le meilleur parallèle avec le Swartland, c'est probablement le Roussillon. D'abord parce qu'on a une géologie assez proche. On a des schistes, on a des granites, etc. Beaucoup de schistes en tout cas. Et puis on a la tramontane, en tout cas du vent qui souffle dans le Roussillon, des sols très pauvres. Et en même temps, il fait relativement chaud et très sec, avec des sols qui sont des sols très pauvres, donc où effectivement le stress hydrique est quand même assez marqué quand il fait chaud. Donc c'est probablement la région qui me fait le plus penser au Swartland. En plus, je trouve qu'il y a un beau clin d'œil, en tout cas de belles similitudes, parce qu'on est en train de voir aussi que le Roussillon est en train de faire des vins extrêmement élégants, récoltés relativement tôt, dans ce climat qui est quand même plutôt chaud et sec. Donc voilà, je trouve qu'il y a vraiment quelque chose d'assez proche.
Merci pour la question. N'hésitez pas si vous avez des questions à poser. Là, vous avez des gens qui connaissent bien le sujet et ils peuvent vous répondre avec plaisir. Maybe we can start the tasting, Raffi. You want to say something less about?
Non, on va juste passer en anglais. Si jamais vous n'hésitez pas, il y a une chatroom. J'essaierai de faire de la traduction en direct s'il y a un mot que vous ne comprenez pas ou n'hésitez pas en tout cas. Donc, merci Jérémy pour cette introduction. So switching to English now. Chris and Andrea, welcome. We're very happy to have you here. It feels like you're next door. I know you're far away, but very glad to have you. So tonight, I'll leave the mic to you. If there are questions, we'll let you know. And yeah, if you can maybe, I have a short video on the farm. We can also use maybe to show the farm at some stage. And also to show the fynbos, because I believe that's an important aspect of your vineyard. But yeah, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Raffi. Yeah, firstly for being our importer and yeah, believing in our wines enough to sell them in France. It's fantastic. Thank you for the support. And also Maxime and Juliette for your funding of Raffi's new project. Yeah, really appreciate it. And Jeremy also, a good friend, and yeah, it's great to have you guys all introducing us, so thank you. And a few familiar faces, David, Thomas, yeah, a few familiar faces also, so good to see everyone. Yeah, thanks for I could kind of follow most of that introduction, yeah, just a little bit more background. Andrew and I are both first generation winemakers. I'm from South Africa originally, Andrea's from California. Two first generation winemakers, and we met in France at a festival in Champagne while I was working in Bandol and Andrea was working in Châteauneuf. So we've got a lot of soft spots in France for in our heart. But yeah, we find ourselves in a region in South Africa called the Swartland. As Raffi explained, it's about 1 hour north of Cape Town, so directly to the north. We could have settled anywhere in South Africa, as we are not from family wineries, but we specifically chose to come to this region for a few reasons. We have these incredible old vineyards, which we'll talk about now. We're very fortunate in South Africa to have many hectares of old vines. We have these fantastic ancient soils that are really interesting to plant vines and to work with. And we have this amazing dry and warm climate, which works very well if you plant and work with the right grape varieties. And I think that's one of the interesting things and one of the challenging things in the new world. We have complete freedom to do anything. We can plant any grape in any place and make any style of wine we want. Which makes for a lot of creativity and freedom, but often people will plant something in a region for the wrong purpose. It's maybe because commercially there's a demand for a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay or a Cabernet, but it's not necessarily the right grape for that terroir that the farmer or the vigneron is based in. So our philosophy, and I think many of the philosophy of the new generation of winemakers in South Africa since the last 15 years is to really focus on only doing and making wine from grapes that are suited to the terroir of the region. So where we are in the Swartland, it is warm, it is dry. So it's definitely more, as Jeremy was saying, of a climate you would find similar to the Languedoc or in the south of France, so more of a Mediterranean climate. So
as you are talking, excuse me, Chris, as you are talking about the region, because some participants have arrived a little bit late, and they didn't see the map that we showed at the beginning. So I'm just showing it again here. And the Swartland is the region near Malmesbury here, which is about an hour and a half from Cape Town, more or less. And it's away from the historical region of Stellenbosch and Paarl, Franschhoek, which are here. And also, again, Jeremy talked about Hermanus, which is famous here for cooler climate. And the Swartland, where Chris and Andrea are making their wine and established their estate, is here north of Cape Town.
Yeah. So it's the whole pink region. So it's in fact, you can see there, it's the largest wine region in South Africa in terms of the size, but it's not the largest in terms of the number of hectares planted because it is very dry. Most of the vineyards are planted on the mountains because we have more rainfall on the mountains. So it's possible to grow vines. In the valleys between the mountains, the rain is too little, so it's impossible to grow vines successfully. So obviously there are challenges with the dry climate, but there are also, I think, many interesting things and many opportunities. One of the things for us, which is really interesting, is the ability to farm more naturally without needing to spray as much. So because we have very little rainfall, most of it is in the winter. We're able to farm with only organic sprays and to spray very infrequently. We don't have to spray very often. Also, because of the dry conditions, we do not have a lot of vegetation growing under the vines. So we're able to farm without using any herbicides like Roundup. So we are able to either just de-weed by hand because there's not a lot of weeds, or we are working a bit differently. We plant cover crops and we put mulch under the vines because they stop the weeds from growing. But also what's more important is they keep water in the soil. And for us, really, that is one of the most important things with the farming is to build the organic matter in the soil, build the life in the soil to have more carbon, which holds water and helps the vines to grow. So we have this climate, this amazing dry climate. We have these very ancient soils that are based on mostly decomposed granite and schist. And those are the sort of three strongest factors in our terroir. So a dry climate, schist and granite soils, and then we're very lucky to have these really old vineyards in the region. So the very first wine that we're going to taste tonight, and we can talk more about the winemaking as we go through the wines, is the Old Vines White. So this is our 2019 Old Vines White. And this is a real traditional blend from the Swartland region. So here what we're doing is we're taking Chenin Blanc, which is obviously originally a Loire grape variety. And as Raffi explained, we have a lot of Chenin Blanc in South Africa. I think we have twice the amount as in the Loire Valley in South Africa. But what we do in the Swartland is we like to blend Chenin with other varieties. So it's quite unique in the world to have blends of Chenin with other varieties. But I think it works extremely well where we are. So yeah, so maybe Andrea, if Andrea can chat maybe a little bit about what the other grape varieties are and why we work with them, and also how are we making the wine in the cellar?
So, hello, thank you for coming tonight. So with this wine, as Chris mentioned, it's a blend. And for us, the blend is a way for us to bring complexity with the different varieties because it's a warm, dry region. And so the challenge sometimes in warm, dry regions is that you can have kind of homogeneous flavors in a vineyard as opposed to a cool wine growing region where you have a lot of complexity even in a single vine. But obviously our positives are that we have very low disease pressure, which means that we don't have to spray inorganic chemicals in the vineyard, which means that we have a very healthy balance of life, of natural yeast and natural malolactic bacteria on the vines. And that goes straight into then how we can treat the grapes when they're coming in the winery. So everything that we're going to tell you about the wines today, you will know that everything is made only with indigenous yeast that come off the individual parcels of the vines, as well as malolactic bacteria, which, to soften the acids, which we encourage all the wines, even the white wines, to complete malolactic fermentation so that there can be very little intervention. So the theme there is the lowest possible intervention in the vineyards so that we can have the lowest possible intervention and healthy grapes that come into the winery so that what you're tasting is really the true essence of our vineyards in the Swartland. So as Chris was saying, it's Chenin Blanc dominant. And the Chenin Blanc is our older vines. So more than 35 years with an average of about 55 years for the Chenin Blanc vines. So old dryland, meaning no irrigation bush vines that bring a structure and a core with some white fruit, but predominantly for the texture and the mouthfeel that you get from Chenin Blanc. With that, we blend.
You have, excuse me, Andrea, you have no irrigation at all on the farm?
We have the ability to have irrigation, but water is very scarce in the Swartland. It's very precious, and so we treat it like the precious resource that it can be. So, yeah. But we have young vines also on the farm, and those need irrigation in their youth. But the idea is that we wean them off. So yeah, 70% or more is 100% dryland farmed mostly because we don't have the water. Yeah. So we need to plant the right varieties in the right place on the right soil types with the right trellising system so that those vines can survive without external intervention.
And to force their root to go deeper as well to get the water.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, how it's farmed. Chris was speaking about the mulch to keep moisture in the soil. It's about having healthy soil, so natural microbes and a really good carbon base in the soil to make it so that we don't have to add.
Here, is this picture that you're mentioning, the mulch that you're growing between the rows? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, yes. So this vineyard is, that picture is on our home vineyard, Roundstone, which is on Kastilberg Mountain, which is slate or slate schist soils. That's quite a shallow, rocky soil that's quite well drained. And for us, what's very important in these soils is to bring up the organic matter, the carbon in the soil. So every winter we plant a cereal like wheat or barley or oats, very, very thick. And we allow that to grow. It grows like to 1 meter. And then in the spring, when the vines just start to grow, we roll it flat. We make like a carpet with the cover crop. So that covers the ground and it protects the ground from getting very warm. It keeps the soil moist and cool. So that helps to keep the moisture in the soil. And it also helps the bacteria to stay alive because otherwise the soil can get too hot. Underneath the vines, where the tractor cannot drive, there we pack straw, like we buy many bales and we pack the straw under the vines. Same reason, yeah. So, and you will see, maybe Maxime, on the picture behind you, that's also the vineyard. And that you will see in the Swartland, most of the vines are gobelet. So like what you will find in the south of France again, or in Châteauneuf, we call them bush vines. It's a gobelet. And there's a few reasons why we prefer Goblet in Swartland. The one very important reason is normally the Goblet vines are a bit smaller, so they have less leaves, less grapes, so they need less water, which is very important. But also where we are, we have a lot of sunshine. You know, in South Africa, the sun is very strong. So the Goblet shape makes almost like an umbrella, and that gives some shade to the grapes. So the grapes are not standing on a cordon where the sun is shining on the bunches. So it gives a little bit more complexity on the wine. If grapes are only standing in the sunshine, the wine becomes very one-dimensional. You only smell fruit. You only taste fruit in the wine. But with a little bit of shade, you also get some floral characteristics and some spice. So for us in the Swartland, Goblet is it's the best way to grow vines. Yeah. So yeah, sorry. And then Andrea was talking about the other grape varieties in the blend.
Yeah, so with the Chenin Blanc, I mentioned that's for the core essence of the wine to get the texture. It's really, you're going to taste the sunshine and really get an incredible expression of Chenin Blanc, which is very different from the Loire, but the adaptation of Chenin in South Africa is very unique. It's been in the country since the mid 1600s. So it is really adapted to the climate, even though it's so very different than in the Loire. And then the other varieties that we blend in are Viognier for an aromatic lift, Claret Blanche for texture, but more of a honeyed beeswaxed mouthfeel. Grenache Blanc brings a beautiful line of acidity. Semillon Gris, so a mutation of Semillon Blanc, but it does have the gris skin, which is a very rare variety in the world, but it brings a beautiful phenolic edge. So even though we're a warm, dry climate, having a little bit of phenol, a little bit of tannin on the white wine helps it to finish longer and more refined, so that it doesn't feel heavy. And
that's what's beautiful about it. It's the texture is very beautiful, because you have something on the mouth, like you say, it's rich, it's a bit opulent, but it's not too heavy. This tension brought by that you mentioned makes it very fresh and light. In fact, the fact that it's very rich, it's a beautifully balanced wine. I love it. I don't know about other people. If you taste the wine and if you want to share your comments, feel free. Or ask questions, take the microphone and do it, anyone.
Yeah, and then even though this is an old vines wine, we are allowed a small percent of young vines in. And we chose to blend in just for more complexity, more saltiness, and also for a very good natural acidity, a little bit of Verdelho and a little bit of Macabou. And so those varieties all together are what we think makes that complete Swartland white blend.
It's a beautiful blend, and the variety that you mentioned, I don't know if everybody got it. The second variety was Viognier, which is quite popular also in France, in the Rhône, especially in Condrieu. It's the wine that is made from Viognier in Condrieu. For those who know Condrieu, this is one of the varieties that's in the blend. It's a beautiful blend. Huh? Oh.
So there's a question about we've been talking about blends. First of all, in South Africa, obviously there's a lot of 100% Chenin Blanc, which are all pretty good. But I think one of the qualities of South Africa, and it's one of the things that really put them on the map, is the blend, the white blends, the Chenin-based white blends, because this is something that, for instance, French people are not used to at all. We don't have Chenin-based blends in France. We only have 100% Chenin from the Loire, and you have a very good example here. But I think the Mullineux, it's not in the tasting today, but they also produce 100% Chenin in there. We'll show you some pictures later. But yes, just remember this in terms of white wines. South Africa is right now, for me personally, and for some other people more famous than me, is making amazingly qualitative whites, blend-based whites, and it's really mind-boggling. So
I think what's exciting at the moment in South Africa with the white wines is, if you think of a wine like this, it's so unique. There's nowhere else in the world that makes a style of wine like this. And I remember it was basically a concept that was created by our good friend Ibn Sadi. In 2000, he made the first wine that was a blend. And I remember I was a student at university and I went to visit him, and he, he was famous for his red wines, but he was making this white wine. And he said, yeah, come and taste this. And before he poured it, he told me what it was, this blend of Chenin and Viognier. And my first thought was, is this legal? I was like, because you're so trained to think Chenin Blanc cannot be blended. Chenin Blanc is 100%. So my first thought was, wow, maybe this is illegal and he will get arrested, kind of thing. But when you tasted the wine, it made so much sense, because we have this old vine Chenin, but our climate is not the same as the Loire. We are drier, we are warmer. We don't have limestone. So our terroir is very different. So it allows us with Chenin Blanc to do many, many different things. And I think that's what's great. In South Africa today, we are not trying to copy other places. We're not trying to make an imitation of Vouvray, or when we make Syrah, yeah, there'll be some similarities to the Rhone Valley, but we want our wine to taste like South African Syrah, not like, a copy. So I think, especially with the white wines at the moment, we have a really very strong identity and confidence to just be South African, which is great.
Yeah, and so someone is asking about the vintage. We're drinking 2019, and someone is asking about the aging potential of this wine. I think, given the texture, I know more or less the answer, but maybe I leave you to respond, Andrea, maybe, or Chris.
Right, I'll just show you something. We actually are drinking. We have a 2010 here.
Wow.
Which we opened 2 nights ago for dinner with a friend. And Andrea, maybe you can tell it.
Can you share? Can you share it with me?
One of the challenges of being first generation winemakers and starting our own winery is that our ability to speak truly from the heart about aging potential is only based on our time frame we've been working with. We can't speak about 10 generations of winemakers and taste the older wines. But now, we started this, the first vintage was 2008, and we taste all the way back each vintage every year. And the focus and the length on the wines does not waver at all. So you can taste the vintage variation, but the ageability, we can now say, ages well, because the wine, because it's made in a natural way, I often say that the place it does not want to be is trapped inside the bottle. And when you open it up, and we often decant the white wines, and it starts to open up, and you can leave it open in a decanter for 3 or 4 days. This white wine, the 2010, we've already had open for a few days now. And it actually starts to taste younger and more mineral the more air it gets. So we cannot tell you if it's going to age for, more than what we know, 20 years or more. But because a wine that is already 11 years old can be open for 3 days and tastes younger and fresher, we can tell you that it will age very well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things, Chenin Blanc is a grape that has a lot of acidity. It's naturally a grape with a lot of acid. So even in the Swartland where we are, it has a good acidity and a very low pH. So that is an indication that the wine has the ability to age very well. And the wine is textural. If you taste the wine, it has a creaminess on the palate, but that's because it's a dry place, it's old vine. So naturally, the wine must have some weight. But inside there, as you said, Max, there's a lot of acidity and energy. So the wine has, I think, for me personally, 5 years to 10 years, the wine is fantastic. But you can certainly age it more than 10 years, no problem.
I think it will be difficult to keep it so long. I think we'll it drank completely before the time.
Yeah.
So there's also a question about food pairing, because this is an unusual blend for us. You know, what do you guys eat with it? So typically.
Well, so what we love about this wine is because even though there's a lot of freshness and a little bit of the phenolic edge, it's not too high in acidity. So what that means is that, you know, the freshness is what helps it to go well with food. The texture is what complements food, but it doesn't have too high of a total acidity that will fight with food. So that we feel that it's actually incredibly diverse. It loves shellfish. It loves things like roast pork, you know, where it's, you know, not, it's got richness and that sort of natural saltiness that pork has. It is beautiful together. And, but it also pairs very well for me with things that traditionally are difficult to pair with wine. So things like artichokes and asparagus, you know, umami characters, mushrooms, cheese. So like an artichoke risotto is an incredible combination with the Mullineux white.
Oh, sounds nice.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry. Cool.
Hey,
So,
excellent.
yes. So any other questions, or should we move on to one of the red ones, the Syrah?
Yeah, we can start with the reds a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Someone was just asking about the winemaking. Andrea, maybe. Sorry, I'm watching the question. Yeah, the barrels. How long? So yeah.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's non-interventionalist winemaking. So it's whole bunch pressing and only to the point where the grapes want. We're not chasing a certain volume. So when the juice starts to not taste right anymore, then we stop the pressing. Very oxidative. We definitely believe in oxidizing the juice to take away any of the oxidizable phenols and coloring agents to help it live longer and its life to be longer. And then only barrel fermented. A little bit of new barrels because we have to replace barrels sometime, but it's mostly large format, you know, 500 liter to 2000 liter foudre that, so that the barrel is more of an aging vessel, but not for flavoring the wine. I think that the micro-oxygenation that a barrel can naturally bring cannot be replicated by a human. So we definitely love barrels for the aging vessel that they are.
Yeah, and then Stefan was just asking how many bottles we make of this wine. About 30,000 bottles every year. So yeah, so cool. So should we talk about the Syrah? I think yeah, that's great. So 2016. So when Andrea and I moved to the Swartland region in 2007 with our first vintage in 2008, we really wanted to initially only make 3 wines. So a white wine, which is the blend we've just tasted, and then 1 red wine, and then 1 sweet wine. And for us, the red wine was a very easy decision. It was a Syrah, because Syrah and our region are just perfectly paired to each other. We have the perfect climate for Syrah. We have these incredible slate or schist soils and granite soils, very similar to what you would find in parts of the Rhone Valley and in southern France. So we knew it was obviously a grape that could work extremely well. This Syrah is 100% Syrah, so we do not blend in any other grapes whatsoever, but it is not a single vineyard. So this is a wine that, in our mind, is an expression of the whole Swartland wine region. So it's a wine that comes from a few different vineyards, 7 vineyards to be precise, planted in different parts of the Swartland. So this wine really gives you a fantastic idea about the whole of the Swartland, and so it's our representation of the Swartland wine region in one bottle. We maybe, Andrea, in the winery, anything special that we do? Like there's a bit of whole cluster.
Yeah. So again, you know, with the Syrah, because we're a warm, dry climate, it would be very easy to make a big, heavy, over-extracted wine. But because we want the soil and the land and the granite and the schist stones that we work with to speak as well as the Swartland Syrah character. Again, it's very gentle in the winery. So it's mostly whole cluster fermentation, but crushed whole clusters. I don't want to do carbonic maceration. I do want just traditional alcoholic fermentation. But the whole clusters not only are a part of the vine, so it's bringing more terroir, more of the vine into the fermentation, but it brings, it helps to tie the Swartland tannins together beautifully, because Swartland tannins are already very soft and very supple, and the stems help to bind them together, but also to lift them, to create a coolness in the wine. So even though we're a warm, dry region, the stems help to make the wine feel cooler. And it also incredibly enhances the aromatics. The violet and the lily flower characters that you naturally get in Syrah, I feel that with the whole cluster fermentation, it absolutely enhances that, which I think is very beautiful in Syrah. In South Africa, we're allowed to say Syrah or Shiraz, and I think that character is what pushes it more into the Syrah spectrum. And then for the barrels, it always spends the first year in barrel and then the second year in large format vessels before we bottle it. And then we always leave it for at least 6 months in bottle. Also, just so that the wine that you're drinking is, we think, already ready to drink. We think that Swartland Syrah you can drink very young, even though it does age incredibly well.
Yeah, so the reason why this is a blend, and we'll see in the next wine that we taste, which is a single vineyard wine from a single soil. The reason why we love to blend in the Swartland is we can, in one wine, create balance and complexity by blending rather than by manipulating the wine by adding chemicals or acidity or tannin or something. So these vineyards are planted in 3 different types of soil. We have 3 main terroirs of soil that we have red wine planted in the Swartland. So the first is schist soils, which is a very shallow, very rocky soil, like similar what you would find in Côte Rôtie. So very rocky, very shallow soils. And they tend to have smaller vines with small berries and very thick skins. So it's always the soil that gives the most tannin and the most structure to the wines. Then we have soils that are very sandy, very deep soils that are based on granite, decomposed granite. So there the vines have very big roots and the vines are bigger. There's more shade, but the berries are a bit larger with more acidity. So those are always the vineyards that if we need acidity in this wine, we use more of those vineyards to blend and bring the acidity rather than to add acid from some other place. And then the third soil type is what we call iron soils. They are very rich in clay and iron, very similar to what you find, in fact, in like Pomerol in Bordeaux. So they make very soft, very velvety wines in South Africa. So this wine is always a blend of those 3 terroirs together. And depending on the vintage, we may use one vineyard more or less to create the balance that we're looking for in the wine. So that's why I say this is always for us an expression of the whole of the Swartland region. Yeah.
That's what's bringing the balance between the different terroirs. That's very interesting. Maybe we can ask some of the participants to share their impression on the tasting. I think I see that our friend Louise who's based in Amsterdam, who's connected with us, and she's preparing the WSET level 4. So maybe she can share her impression. Did you receive the bottle, Louise?
Of course we did. We have the 2 bottles here.
Okay.
Very happy to. Good evening, everybody. So we're here, 2 Frenchies based in Amsterdam, and really, really happy to follow everything. And actually, my friend Simon was 4 months ago in your estate. So for him, it's once again, he's rediscovering your wine, but he was one of the first advocate for you, saying like, the wine are great, I'm definitely coming, it's a great project. So we're very happy I'm personally very happy to discover your wines tonight. And frankly, I love the white wine for sure. And I'm kind of amazed also by the Syrah. Being French, I'm more used to the Syrah from the Rhône Valley, obviously. but this one is particularly powerful when it comes to the body, of course, the level of alcohol, but it's kind of nicely balanced also by all the aroma and the flavor that we can find in the wine, coming from red fruits, black fruits, but also some peppery aromas and slightly oaked. So no, a very good, very nice wine indeed, and happy to see how it will age, because even if it's 5 years ago, it seems like this can use a bit of aging still.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, you summarized it very well. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think again, like with the Shennons, we're trying in South Africa to make our wine must taste like it comes from the Swartland. So there was a tendency in the past to try and make the wine taste like another wine region because that was the reference. But now we really want our vineyards to taste like they come from our place. And Swartland is a little bit warmer and a little bit drier than the Northern Rhone Valley. So our Syrah will never taste exactly the same. That's not the idea. We want to find our own expression. And again, like with the white wine, I think texture is very important. But obviously, any great wine needs to have balance. It must have acidity. It must have tannin structure at the same time. So.
Excellent. What about Sophie? Did you receive the wine eventually?
Sorry, Maxime. Sure, I did.
I think there was some problem in the logistic. And what do you think about it? Sophie visited the Mullineux estate a few years ago. She sent me a tasting notes on a copybook and a notebook, and it was just saying, what was the word you used?
Sorry?
What was the word you used in your notebook?
Outstanding. But it was not the same. But yes, I really appreciated the visits and also the wines. And I had a question about the vintage. How was it this year? Was it sunny?
You mean this year, 2021?
No, in 2016.
Yeah. So do you want to answer?
Sure. Yeah. No, 2016 was an incredibly extreme vintage. It was the hottest and driest year on record in South Africa. So it was a very hot vintage, a very quick vintage. But grapevines, and especially when they're naturally grown and the right vine and planted in the right area, vines are incredible at the self-balance that they can make. So the vines, they knew that it was going to be hot and dry, and they naturally did not make as many grapes that year, or if the vine made too many grapes, it dropped them by themselves. So our yields were down a lot, up to 90% down on some of our vineyards, but on average about 60% down. But with less fruit, it meant that the vine didn't struggle, that it could ripen the fruit properly without making raisins. And so even though it was a very hot, dry year, I think that there is still a lot of balance in this wine, and that you can taste that the vines, they knew what to do to make the fruit ripen to the right level.
I wouldn't tell it was such a hot year. It's still so fresh. It's beautiful, huh? Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, but here, the soils from the Paardeberg, the granite soils, become very important because they always have a lot of freshness. So in a vintage like 2016, we will use a little bit more of the granite soils in the wine to bring that freshness that we're looking for.
Yeah, you don't want something that's jammy and overripe, and that can happen in hot years. And this is not at all what we have. Yeah, it's an amazing result. Great. There are other questions about.
There were a couple of questions about Italian grape varieties. They're in the Swartland. To be honest, there's not a lot of Italian varieties planted. Grapes like Nebbiolo, Sangiovese, I think it's too warm where we are. But we have planted Vermentino, which is the same as Rolle in the south of France. So that is a grape variety that is being planted quite a bit at the moment. I think for climate change, it's a very interesting grape variety to bring acidity into our wines. So yeah, that at the moment is the most predominant sort of Italian variety in the Swartland. Yeah.
There's an interesting thing on Italian or other varieties. It's probably worth a complete different session just for that. It's South Africa, and Jeremy is also some, you know, writing about that is a textbook area for climate change and how to adapt. And a lot of the wineries have seen what a drought can mean and are looking at, you know, what could be maybe the grapes that South Africa will have 50 years from now or 75 years from now. And they have started planting things like Vermentino, things like Assyrtiko from Greece, many plantings coming from Spain and Portugal. Any place that's hot with wind works for South Africa. So
well, but yeah, but we, you know, sorry, yeah, we have
thing.
to. The funny thing is, Raffi, we have to first experiment just a little bit because,
yeah.
You know, if you take Chenin Blanc, for instance, which comes from the Loire, if you came to South Africa, you would never say, this is a place we must plant Chenin, but it's worked so well, and so I think so we are all planting, you know, little, like maybe enough vines, like 1,000 vines, enough to make one barrique of a few different varieties, and then we will see. We believe it's the right grape for our terroir, but the wine must also taste good. So yeah, it's going to be I think a very interesting next 20 years as we plant these varieties and we see this one works well in this place and this one works well in this place. So
by the way, the Mullineux do something in South Africa.
Yeah, I think
they do something in South Africa which is amazing, and I think many wineries should do that in France. Is they have a private members club on whom they try all these new experimental things. So they would try a Grenache, or they would try something completely different, and you get those bottles, and those bottles become quickly collectors because everyone wants to have them. But it's a fantastic way for a winery to build a relationship with the end customer and propose something very valuable. That works both ways. Valuable for the winery because they can try things. Obviously, in South Africa, it's more legal to try things than it is in France sometimes.
Yeah, we can be open about it.
Yeah. I know you get worried about illegal things, but in France, it's less obvious. But it's a great way to try things and build a relationship with your customers.
Cool. Great. So yes, so the next wine is the Schist Syrah. So as I mentioned earlier, we do in some vintages we do bottle some single vineyard wines, both in the Chenin and in the Syrah, and these are wines that for us are really special because they're like kind of a microscope on the terroir of the Swartland. So the previous two wines that we tasted were both blends of many vineyards together in one wine. And here we're tasting one single parcel on its own. And what makes the parcels different really in the Swartland is the soil. The climate is very, very consistent no matter where you are. So yeah, with this picture here, where you see the Schist Syrah block here, so I'm moving my mouse, but I realize you can't see my mouse. Yeah. But yeah, so the Schist Syrah block is that block there right next to the winery. And this is very shallow, rocky soils. And only like maybe 8 kilometers away is the Paardeberg in the background there. So the climate in the Paardeberg is pretty much identical to the Swartland. We have the same rainfall, the same temperatures. It's warm and dry, but the big thing that changes in the terroir is the soil that the vines are planted in. So we name these wines after the soil. So that's why you'll see the top schist, because that is the most important. That is the strongest factor in the terroir of the wine. And as I said with the previous Syrah, this being shallow, rocky soils, this terroir tends to bring more structure, more tannin, and more density to the wine. So this is the more firm, the wine that takes the longest to evolve, the wine that takes the longest to open up. It's the slowest aging and most, I suppose, classic styled Syrah that we produce. The only difference in the winemaking, Andrea, is a little bit longer in oak.
Yeah, so for these wines, they're always only 100% whole cluster. So again, it's putting that magnifying glass with the stems on the soil in which it's grown. So it helps to really highlight what we're looking for, whether it's the structure, the mid palate, or the length. They're only made in very small vessels. So the largest fermentation vessel for these is only 500 liters. So that way it can just be hand punch downs. We like to treat the fermentations more like an infusion rather than an extraction. So it's like gently, only by hand, doing the punch downs or the pigeage.
Pigeage.
Yes. So we want to keep the cap, the skins on top. We want to keep them healthy, so they must stay wet. But we don't want to use a machine or a lot of force where you're going to extract out more tannin, too much extraction, and then you're not going to taste what we think the soil gives it anymore. Then you're only going to taste what the winemaker is doing. And then it spends 2 years in vessel before it's blended and then eventually bottled and then released after a year after bottling.
Yeah, I see that. I think Jeremy, if you have the wine with you, can you maybe share your impressions?
Yeah, I do have the wine, and it's great. So very happy to say a few words. It's my favorite usually in the red range. Actually, I think it's pretty Northern Rhone in style. To be honest, probably not very Côte Rôtie, maybe more Cornas than Côte Rôtie if I had to if I had to compare. I think this wine avoids many pitfalls. It's not too heavy, first of all. I think when Syrah is growing in very warm conditions, it can be very jammy. We all know that. I remember Henri Bonneau saying Syrah in Châteauneuf is tasting like Syrah, and in Hermitage it has the taste of terroir. And I think you have the taste of terroir here. It is powerful, but I think 2015 is very elegant as well, honestly. Probably also because it has almost 7 years now. But it's got this thick, chewy tannins, but quite polished in the meantime. So yeah, and then lots of fruit and this wildness that I mentioned, its saltiness that is for me really the footprint of Swartland that you get both in white and red wines. So yeah, really delicious and pretty opened, I think, for schist, because I've tasted some schist younger, but that were still a bit closed. These wines need time, but yeah, it's really a great bottle.
Yeah, we picked this vintage for the tasting because it was the one that works at the moment. But yeah, usually I think in the schist as well as granite need many years in bottle. But this one is I'm impressed how open it is.
If I can add one or two things, some people might think that Syrah is easy to for winemaking. I don't think it's the case. I think it's easy to produce a very bad Syrah. I think oak, it needs oxygen because it's very reductive. So it's difficult because in the meantime, new oak and Syrah, it becomes very heavy. So you need to find the right balance. As I mentioned, I think the vineyard is very important. So I think that the gobelet is extremely important, and shading the grapes and picking at the right time is definitely crucial. I see 13.5 ABV on the label. Believe me, it's not that easy to peak at 13.5 or 13.7. I don't know the exact figure, but anyway, it's not that easy in Scotland to peak at that alcohol potential level. So yeah, and difficult to produce great Syrah. Probably easy to do something fruity, but doing something very complex is much more difficult.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you know, it's the two things we said at the beginning that allow us to make a wine like this in a warm place, in a dry place. It's planting the right grape in the right place, and it's the way we farm. If we've seen that with the last 5 years with the drought, the vineyards that were farmed more naturally, that had really good life in the soil, good cover crops, good mulch. They were the vines or the vineyards that had the least problems, the least stress with the drought. And the vineyards that were farmed less naturally, where the soils were not well covered with cover crops and you know, farmed more conventionally, they were the vineyards that had much more challenges. So I think that's been really interesting the last 5 years for us. We've learned, you know, we've always tried to farm naturally, but it's been a really very affirming experience to go through the last 5 years. So yeah.
We can feel it in the glass. Huh? All this effort that you put in the vineyard, and the result is just fantastic. We have lots of comments in the chat. People are very impressed by the quality of the wine, the tannins. I mean, you just browse through the comments. People are very impressed by the quality of the tannins. And maybe some other participants who are fan of Northern Syrah, like Jérôme, is he still around? Jérôme, did you leave the meeting or not yet?
No, I'm still there.
Okay. Did you receive yeah, you know that many people have received small format of bottles, which I'm afraid maybe the expression for this wine, especially this wine, needs a little bit of volume in the glass. So I'm curious to know, I think you, Jérôme, you received the small format?
Yes.
What do you think about the wine?
So effectively, I confirm. I had to try to drink as a whole and avoid splitting because it needs a minimum of volume. But I am impressed by the tannins. This is definitely incredible. They are so smooth, so mature. It's very incredible. I like the length. It's long lasting, and it's in particular, it's even more noticeable on the 2016 version, the regular Syrah, where there's a kind of ramping up sensation of tasting during the time. So this is a very, very good sensation. And the schist is effectively enriched with this terroir, very exotic, at least with the French culture, but we can definitely feel it. It's very present. It's very, very pleasant to see the mix between this very subtle spices and this more terroir part. I really liked both of them, and effectively the schist one is a bit higher in terms of finish, but I really like both of them.
Yeah, and what I like the finish you mentioned, Jérôme. What I like, especially in this wine, is that it makes you salivate and that you want to taste to drink more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for us really the most important thing with all of our wines is the wines must make you want to drink more. That's fundamental from every single wine we ever bottle. It's a wine where you must want to finish the bottle and have another one. It's fundamental.
With moderation.
Yeah. Well,
you need some help of a bunch of friends. But definitely, this one is when you finish it. This is type of salinity that you have in the mouth that makes that sparkles in your taste buds, and that makes you want to have more. So I'm sorry for the one who have the small format.
No, I confirm. The salinity is really present in the schist version, and effectively, it's like you want to discover more and try again. And effectively, this is the limit of the small bottles.
But
I
now
did not know
you know where to
how
get.
small they were.
That's true. They are very small.
How small.
But now you know where to get the bottles, the full format,
exactly.
From goodhope.fr with Raffi. You can buy the bottles now, the full size.
Good tactic to put small bottles.
Could you talk a little bit about the other domain that you have, the Lou Passant? I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Actually, I'm just gonna put on screen the. So just for you guys to all understand the various labels and the wines that the Mullineux are involved in. There is what we call an entry-level range, which is the Kloof Street, which we haven't mentioned, but there's a red wine and a white wine. The white is completely Chenin Blanc, and the red is I would say a kind of like Southern Rhone type blend, with also there is some Tinta as well in there, I think.
Yeah, so, Tinta Barocca, yeah.
So still an original blend. And then you have the, in the range, sorry, where is it? Okay, you have some of the wines we tasted at the beginning. This is what the Domaine, we would say les vins du Domaine. So you have the Old Vines White, which we had, the Syrah, and then there are two fantastic sweet wines, the Straw Wine, Vin de Paille, which is produced pretty much every year. And then the unicorn wine, the Oleracea, which is the straw wine, but in a Solera system. So every year they keep the current vintage and they mix it with previous vintages, and they do an amazing Solera straw wine. I'm not a big fan of 100 points and things like that, but this wine got 100 points from Neil Martin. So I don't know about scores. I just know that it's a gorgeous wine. It's a very rare wine that hopefully we'll all get to share together one day, not in a mini bottle. And then you have what is called the single terroir range. These are where you can find 100% Chenin from the farm. So there's a granite Chenin, a quartz Chenin, and then the schist, the granite, and the iron that we mentioned. These are also fantastic wines. And then there is another venture where Andrea and Chris are involved. It's the Liu Passant, which is in Franschhoek. So Andrea and Chris, if you want to say a word about it. But by the way, it's a fantastic place also for hospitality. Fantastic food, restaurants, hotel.
Yeah, so it's a partnership. We started this winery in 2014, so it's a relatively new project, together with a partner who owns the hotel. And for us, for our Mullineux winery, obviously everything is 100% Swartland, and we always knew of these amazing vineyards outside of the Swartland that obviously we could never work with. And some of them are really very special. There are vineyards that are more than 100 years old, like Cinsault, that are just incredible parcels of vineyards. And yeah, so in 2014 we started a new winery in Franschhoek, focused on these wines that are authentic heritage blends from South Africa. So made in the same way, the same winemaking, the same. Here's Philippa.
The next generation.
Hello, Philippa.
Hi, Philippa.
Did you taste the wine with your finger in the glass?
Philippa's big aim in life is to learn French. She's yeah, it's a big aim in life. So yeah, she's.
You can come for an internship at WineFunding.
Yeah.
Oh, do you like that?
Yeah, so she's coming on our next trip, Raffi, when she really wants to.
Yeah, she's more than welcome here.
Yeah, but yes, so Liu Passant is not in the Swartland. It's outside of the Swartland, and the focus is more on Cinsault and Cabernet Sauvignon. Those were the really special wines made in South Africa in the 19th century. We made these kind of like Chateau Mouzar, I suppose, in Lebanon, which was a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cinsault, and Carignan. We in South Africa made blends of Cabernet Sauvignon and Cinsault, and sometimes another grape. And our modern interpretation of these wines is made in Franschhoek, and we also make a very special Chardonnay there. So yeah, so it's same.
What about
same
the Cinsault? I believe you have a very old vineyard of Cinsault on this farm, don't you?
Yeah, we work with it's the two oldest red wine vineyards in South Africa. So there's no other red wine vineyard older. So the one was planted in 1900. So before there was even a car in South Africa or a tractor. When you go in the vineyards, there's no the rows are like crazy. Because they've never had a machine in the vineyard. It's always been farmed by hand. So very special varieties, yeah.
And is it grafted or?
Yes. So they were the first vineyards planted after phylloxera. So phylloxera came in South Africa about 1870, and by like 1890, all the vineyards were destroyed. And so they started in South Africa. They replanted the wine industry with Cinsault. So in like 1920, 1940, it was about 80% Cinsault in South Africa. So it was a very common, or the most common grape variety in the country. Yeah.
But so with all vineyards, with all vines of Cinsault, you can make beautiful wines. Last night we had a tasting in Languedoc, and the winemaker is a fan of Cinsault. He calls it the Pinot Noir of Languedoc.
Yeah.
Because with all vines, you can make beautiful Cinsault.
Well, yeah. Next time we come, we have obviously the vineyards are very small and the production is very low, but we have some 100% Cinsaults we make from those vineyards. They are very, very special. So we'll bring some for you.
With pleasure. Next time we have a tasting of Liu Passant. So Liu is in Franschhoek. So Franschhoek means the French corner. It's because lots of the French Huguenots, when they emigrated, where they fled the persecution in France, they emigrated, and many of the French Huguenots settled in the Franschhoek area, where they were not allowed to speak French. Actually, it was forbidden to speak French. But many of them settled with farms, and you will see, if you have the chance to visit Franschhoek, the name of the farms are very, very, very French.
Like Grand Provence, Le Petit Femme, they're all French. Haute Cabrières, it's all,
Chamonix,
all French.
All of these, and Dieudonné, there's even one. So many. And Liu in Afrikaans, I believe, means lion.
Correct. Yeah.
So it refers to the lion that used to pass around in this area. Do you think they were?
Yeah, well, there's that connection, but it's more our partner there's surname means lion, so it's the property that is owned by him. So it's
It's a beautiful property. When you showed it, Raffi, it's interesting. This architecture, we call Cape Dutch, which is called in French architecture hollandaise du Cap. It's inspired. It comes from the Dutch people who, when they started to build buildings over there, they had this similar architecture, but it evolved and they adapted it to the Cape town, Cape region area. So we call it Cape Dutch, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So you see, it's a beautiful place when you visit it. It's one of the most beautiful wine region in the world, really, because you have the vineyard, the mountain, the ocean, and there's a lot of diversity. For the biodiversity, it's actually very good to limit the number of pesticides that you use. So it's really a place that when we can come and visit you again in South Africa.
Maybe Raffi, you said you have the video. Maybe you can share it quickly. It's short. It's like 2 minutes, just to show you the landscape of where we are.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, it's coming. Just hold on a second.
Everybody will travel a little bit.
Yeah.
Since we are all stuck and locked down in our place, we will travel with this short video.
You have to taste the wine while you're watching the video, because then you can feel like you're in the place. There you go.
So what you're seeing here is you're actually seeing the farm here. This is This is the house and the cellar. I don't know if you can see my little hand moving.
Yes, we see.
Yeah. And what you see behind here is the mountain that we mentioned, the schist mountain, the Castilberg. And there used to be Merlot here, right? You took it all out.
The previous owner made a mistake.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful farm, and you have you can see a Table Mountain in Cape Town from the farm at night. This is that famous, sorry, went a bit fast, but that's the famous palm block where you have a lot of the fynbos. An equivalent of the fynbos in France would be garrigue. It's basically an ecosystem of plants that is indigenous to the place. So, and I know that Andrea and Chris have been impressed by a visit to Léon Barral in Faugère, and you also have now cows on the farm as well. So.
Yeah, he was the most amazing vigneron. The wines sometimes are like alive, but his farming for me was incredible. Really, I've never met someone who's a farmer like that.
I like your diplomatic way to commend the wines.
It's true.
Hey, Philippa. Yeah,
and you can see JC and Philippa, the next generation.
Yeah, and the fynbos is very aromatic, like garrigue, you know, like lavender or rosemary. It's very aromatic. So the oils drift in the air, and they give also a sense of place to the wine. So for us, it's very important to have you can see a natural balance in the vineyards with the local vegetation and the vines together. It's very important.
Also, fynbos is a lot about biodiversity because it hosts some ladybird, which can help against the mealybug for the leaf roll, which is a virus that is extremely difficult to fight in South Africa, especially. So yeah. So again, when you talked about the textbook and climate change and virus and everything and biodiversity, it's another example.
Cool.
Excellent. Maybe before we wrap up, or maybe there are other questions. If you enjoyed the tasting and what we've discussed, you can support the project for Raffi by going on the WineFunding website. You choose the Good Hope project, this one, which is going to be almost financed. So hurry up. And then when you open, you will see a video presenting the South Africa and the selection of wines. And then you can select different packages of producers, and you will see other producers. And here is the Mullineux that we've tasted some of the wines. So there's a Mullineux package, but there are also other producers. One of your friends in Swartland as well, Adi Badenhorst, another very nice package. And then one from Stellenbosch, Reneke Vineyard, who works dynamically. And then from a cool region in Walker Bay, a selection of two producers, Crystalum and Restless River. So that gives you a choice of different options. And also some of the packages have been split between different producers. And you can have easygoing wine for €100 with three different producers. Then you have the premium where you have, for example, the Chenin we've tasted and the first Sierra we've tasted from Mullineux. We couldn't resist but to put the two. and then the Prestige, that's where you find the Syrah, the last one we tasted. So help yourself with the different choices. And if you have questions, feel free to ask. It's very easy to do it online. And then when all of this is financed, hopefully Raffi will be able to launch his website. Do you have maybe a preview of the website, Raffi? And then you can order straight from the website?
Yeah, sure. Let me just show you what it's starting to look like. So hold on.
This is exclusivity. The first time. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, okay? I don't mind. It's made to go public at some stage. So
almost en primeur in Bordeaux, so it's
Yeah, let me. So it's still in draft version, but the idea is to have something very simple to navigate and very content based, because I think that's the best way to learn about all these things. So it's there's a landing page, and in this landing page, on a regular basis, we will highlight a domain, winery. Here you can see our friend Eben talking about how he got his idea from the Negev desert to plant some vines. And then basically you can navigate through the wines. There will be also a blog. There will be a lot of live events. I will come to that. And the idea is really, I'm trying different things here, so don't pay attention. But the idea is that for each wine, there will be your regular type of information, but there will also be videos about the winery and the wine itself. So here, for instance, this is Adi Badenhorst for those who know him. But if I go here, for instance, I think I have an example with the Mullineux white here. And here there's a little video of Andrea and Chris explaining what's behind the Old Vines white. So.
I'm wearing the same shirt.
Yeah, you're wearing the same shirt. Yeah, that's amazing. That's your video shirt. So that's that's a sneak preview into the website. It will be very video based, and the idea is to have these kind of events on a very regular basis. So hopefully it's going public. We're going public at the end of the month, and somewhere mid-May there will be the first, the second, but the first for Good Hope. There will be another live session like this. This time with Adi Badenhorst from the Swartland again. But there will be basically a live event every 4 weeks. So every 4 weeks we'll be able to do this kind of event with another winery. And this is obviously in a COVID time, but hopefully there will also be face-to-face events. Many of these South African wine producers travel a lot to Europe. So we'll be looking forward to organize dinners and tastings where we can get together without masks, hopefully. And
Andrea and I were just saying, Raffi, sorry to interrupt you. Exactly 2 years ago, we were in Paris because we went for a romantic walk past the Notre Dame, and the next day we heard of the terrible fire, but it wasn't us.
But we know it's you, but we'll keep it away from the police. Yeah.
But no, so we do travel a lot. Yeah, South African winemakers travel a lot.
Yeah, so there'll be a lot of events because I truly believe in events. The Swartland Revolution was the best event ever. So the idea is to replicate that and to have a lot of content available to the people who are interested in. So,
Raffi, it's looking great, all of this. Some people are asking in the chat if you're going to deliver outside France. Dair, I think Dair is based in Italy. And we have also people who are connected with us tonight from Germany, from Netherlands. We heard Louise. And will you be able to ship outside? Because this selection in France is quite unique. What you're offering to the French public is very unique. I wanted to organize last year a tasting with different cuvées from different countries in the world. I had to order from 5 suppliers in Netherlands, England, everywhere. It was quite difficult. To have this selection in France is new, it's unique. So congratulations, Raffi. Thank you very much for doing this. And what about the neighboring countries for our friend Dair in Italy and others?
I'll be more than happy to deliver to Italy and other countries. I think right now for all the people in the wine business, the one country we don't want to deliver wines to because of the paperwork is England. But even that we can do, I guess, going through Northern Ireland or something. But yeah, no, you will be able to have deliveries across Europe. The site itself will be at the beginning only in French, I'm sorry, and Armenian to please my mother. But yeah, we'll be able to deliver. I mean, not me, but UPS is able to deliver, so they will hopefully deliver those. We tried it. Actually, I think we managed to get some wines to Amsterdam and some to Germany. So yeah, it will be possible. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so yeah, check it out because it's going to be a very good selection, quite unique to have picked the best
yeah, so
winemakers.
There'll be around on launch date there will be around 40 wineries. So and I had to force myself to make a short list. My accountant wanted less, but I told him to go somewhere else. But yeah, there will be more than 100 wines from 40 different wineries. And if it works, there will also be more wineries. There's a lot of talent in South Africa. The Mullineux are a locomotive, we say in France, but there's many more that are really worth discovering, and hopefully we will be able to discover them. And they're all great personalities, and they all want to come to France in 2023 for the World Cup, the real one, the Rugby World Cup, not the football one.
Maxime, Raffi, est-ce que je peux dire juste quelques mots avant que vous...
Vas-y, Jérémy.
Oui.
Voilà, déjà, je voudrais dire lots of chapeau, Raffi, pour ce projet. Je pense qu'il faut vraiment supporter ce type de projet parce que c'est assez rare qu'on apporte autant de contenu. C'est un peu, pour moi, les limites de la plupart des projets sur les vins étrangers. Et il y a vraiment besoin d'apporter beaucoup de contenu parce que je crois que d'abord les gens en ont envie. Moi, je n'ai aucun intérêt dans Good Hope. Hein. Je suis venu aujourd'hui parce que Raffi est un ami et parce que Chris et Andrea sont des amis et parce que voilà, je trouve que c'est important de soutenir ce type de projet parce que aussi, on ne le dira jamais assez, l'Afrique du Sud est un pays viticole formidable. Parce qu'il y a énormément de passion, parce qu'il y a lots of good guys and lots of good wines là-bas, et que ça mérite, je pense, qu'on soit là pour soutenir ces initiatives. Donc voilà, donc encore bravo, et en plus, les sélections que j'ai vues passer sont des sélections d'excellents vins. Donc je ne peux qu'inciter tout le monde à remplir ces caves, puisqu'ils ne le regretteront pas quand ils ouvriront ces beaux flacons.
Merci beaucoup, Jérémy. Je ne sais pas s'il y avait d'autres questions dans le chat. On va peut-être libérer tout le monde. Maybe Chris, Andrea, you wanted to add something to wrap up? We are about to go out, break out to go back home or for dinner.
Yeah, for us, it's just thank you. Yeah, thanks for you, Maxime, and Juliette for getting behind Raffi's project, behind Good Hope. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Raffi, for believing in South Africa enough to make a business out of it. It's fantastic. Jeremy, for joining us tonight, and most important to everybody else, thank you for coming this evening and learning a bit more about us and our wines and Raffi's project. And please support Good Hope. You won't be disappointed. Raffi's got fantastic taste in wine, so all the wines that he imports are good. So thank you everybody.
Thank you for your interest and for listening to us and watching our videos. It touches our heart that people are tasting our wines from around the world.
Thank you, everybody. Raffi, you wanted to say something? Tu veux dire quelque chose peut-être?
Non, je voulais just a big thanks to Chris and Andrea for trusting me for the last 10 plus years. And thank you everyone here for joining and taking the time, and looking forward to doing great things all together. So, and be happy, drink good wine. We only live once, so enjoy life.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Merci beaucoup à tous d'être venus si nombreux. C'était vraiment super sympa. Merci pour les questions que vous avez posées. Et si vous en avez d'autres, n'hésitez pas à nous écrire et on fera un plaisir de vous répondre. Merci à tous. Bonne fin de soirée et à la prochaine. Au revoir.
Ciao, au revoir. Merci. Bye. Ciao.